The parasha that we are going to delve in this morning into is Parashat Vayetze. And I'll talk more about our opening story with the stairway to heaven, if you will. By the way, I saw a great sign on a church once that said, the fact that there's a stairway to heaven and a highway to hell says something about the anticipated traffic numbers. But I'll talk more about that stairway to heaven a little bit later. What I want to talk about this week is the journey of Jacob from being a lonely vagabond running away from home to the point where he eventually grows to become the patriarch of the Jewish people, along, of course, with his 4 matriarchs that he brings with him on the way. It's interesting, to compare this particular story where Jacob arrives in Haran, the same place that Damesek Eliezer, Abraham's servant, arrived, and to see the difference in the way that they are welcomed. Jacob arrives with absolutely nothing but the clothes that he might be wearing on him. Damesek Eliezer arrives and is treated like royalty. He kind of knows the protocol. He's got lots of gold bracelets and other things in order to try to bring home a wife for Isaac. But because Jacob arrives as a stranger, no credentials, so to speak, he is put to work for 7 years, 2 times, to marry his 2 wives, Rachel and Leah. He then gets to marry Bilhah and Zilpah as well as their concubines in between. And it's at the end of that parasha that finally, like many people who have been working in the family business for a long time, Jacob realizes it's finally time for him to go break off on his own. And that's what he does. He goes to his wives in the middle of the night and says, you know what? It's time to depart and go on our own way. But as we see in our parsha, that ain't always so easy. And we see Rachel, we are told, steals something on the way from her father, Lavan. What she steals are called trafim. I spoke about this a little bit in more detail in our parsha study this week. But what trafim would be, or the closest thing that I could compare them to today, is if anyone has a stone chest set at home, maybe like a stone chest set with these very intricately carved out pieces. These are little idols that were likely her father's household gods that she takes with her on the journey. And our commentators are all over the map. Why would Jacob steal her father's household gods to take with her when she is leaving her old life behind and moving forward into the land of Eretz Yisrael? Our commentators fall out in 2 different directions. The first group of Meforshim say, well, she is trying to remove the idolatry from the home of her father, Lavan. And so she's taking these little household idols with her, putting them literally underneath her tuchas. I can't describe it any other way. It's almost like getting pulled over for a speeding ticket. Lavan's looking for his idols and says, have you seen them? And she says, I'm sorry, I can't get up in what is an awful terror. The way of women is with me right now. I'm sorry, I can't get up right now. And Lavan goes, no problem, walks away, doesn't take it. So the little trafim are hiding there, and it could be that she is stealing them from her father's house, so he will not practice idolatry anymore. But lo and behold, there's another explanation too, and this is what I want to speak with everyone just a little bit about this particular morning. And that is that old habits sometimes die hard. And it's very likely that Rachel, our matriarch, took those little statues with her because it was a taste of home. A flavor of home that she wanted to bring with her to always forget what for her had been a positive, perhaps, experience in her father's house. And so Rachel takes these little pieces with her, hides them because she doesn't want to part with them, even though she knows that Jacob is a monotheist and only worships Adonai. She wants a part of that home to go with her. I think that we all, for those of us who have come to a new place in our lives, understand a little bit about what that's like. If you go into my office, you'll see a little book on the shelf. It says, Doing Things the Wawa Way. Okay, those of you know Wawa is a convenience store from Philadelphia. I don't think I even went there more than for 30 seconds the last time I was at home visiting Philadelphia. But nonetheless, having that book on that shelf occasionally reminds me where I'm from in my life and where I grew up, and it's a piece of that with me. And I'll bet if each and every one of you, and I know that not all of us are transplants to Georgia, but many of us are, I'll bet each and every one of you could think about it. You have something in your home sitting on a shelf that reminds you of what your childhood was like, or what it was that you carried with you that you weren't just quite ready to leave behind. So with that thought, I leave you to the parasha, Parashat Vayetze. It's on page 166 in your Eitz Chaim Chumash. John Steinbeck, the great American author, once wrote that one's destination is never a place. It's just a new way of seeing the world. In the Torah this week, Jacob comes to a makom, to a place. What he doesn't realize until later is that he has come to a destination. Jacob is so tired of climbing uphill to the top of the mountain that he doesn't even realize that he needs a change in his life. Jacob is so desperate for a rest from all of the family drama that with no blankets and pillows to spare, he collects a random pile of rocks. He rests his head on them and he falls right asleep. How many of you could do the same? Only in that makom, that place, something happens to Yaakov. He realizes he's come to a destination. He has a vision of angels going up and down the stairway to heaven. And then in this John Steinbeck inspired moment, Jacob's entire view of the world changes. It changes so much that he exclaims, Yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh v'ani lo yadati. There's God in this place, and I did not know it at the time. Jacob asks, why am I only seeing that right now? How did I not see that before? As readers of the story, when we read this story, we also, like Jacob, find ourselves in a similar kind of moment. We delve into the text, we read his story, and we understand that while the word makom means a place, a destination, in Hebrew, the word makom also is a word for God. On Pesach in my house growing up, we would sing, Baruch HaMakom, Baruch Hu. Blessed be God, the ever-present one in our lives. Blessed be the God who is our destination. Blessed be the God who allows us to change the way that we see things so that we can see things new in the world. That's the meaning of this very complex story that has befuddled the Meforshim for generations. Jacob comes to a place. He thinks it's only a mountain. But what the Midrash and the rabbis teach us is that there was so much more that's complex to this story. The stones that Jacob gathers in haste, those stones, the rabbis teach us there were 12 of them. 12 stones for the 12 tribes of Israel. They represented the children and the future that he was going to build. You know, when he left home in this week's Parsha, he didn't even know he was going to have a future. Jacob then realizes that the mountain that he has come to isn't just a mountain. It's not a random place. It's Har HaMoriah, Mount Moriah, where his father was nearly sacrificed decades earlier. And that same mountain, Har HaMoriah, is the mountain on which Jerusalem is built, with the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, on top. That's when Yaakov understands that coming to Hamakom, having God in your life, brings you to a new place. Having God in your life gives you a new perspective. It allows you to see the world differently. That's what coming to God, finding God in your life, coming to a destination can do. You know, as Jews, we see this all the time in our lives. We see how bringing God into our life changes our perspective and allows us to see the world in a new way all of the time. The arrogant college student travels on a birthright trip to Israel. He or she thinks that they know everything there is to know about the Arab-Israeli conflict. After all, they read about it on Twitter. How don't they know everything? Why, they ask, are Israelis so cruel? Then they experience Israel. They come to a makom, to a destination, and they see that conflict for what it is. Complicated, nuanced. Like Jacob, they ask, how was there God in this place? Yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh? But I didn't know it. They return to their campus and they see Israel, God willing, and the world in an entirely new way. We all know the person who does not come at all to shul. Then they lose a loved one. They start coming to minyan in the morning to say Kaddish. They really don't want to do it. They like sleeping in like the rest of us. They only do it because they think that there is some futile sense of obligation. It's what their parents would want them to do. Then they start coming, and they keep going. They experience a loving, supportive family, a community that goes out for breakfasts, that goes out to Christos every Wednesday night for bingo. They make an entirely new group of friends. Well, they say, Yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh? I didn't know that God was in this place. They get a new perspective, and they continue to go even after the year is up. A congregant walks into my office. They say, Rabbi, why didn't God keep my family member alive? Isn't that God's one job, to give me what I want? Isn't that God's role in the universe, to make me happy all the time? Only by the end of the grieving process, what we come to understand is that God is larger than any one person's needs. God is the source of strength on the journey that encourages us to carry out our grief in a different way. Yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh. There is God in that moment too, that will help us see the world in a new and different way. Someone once asked me if I could sum up all of Judaism on a bumper sticker, what it would be. The great sage Hillel once upon a time tried this. We all know the story. He got on one foot and he said, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as you love yourself. The rest is just commentary. A few years ago, Smith Magazine also tried this experiment. They asked Jews to send in their best 6-word memoir. Sum up Judaism in 6 words. They published a whole book. It's in my office. Among my favorites is, come pray, but stay for bagels. Only reflecting on the Parsha this week, I think that here in this week we see Judaism's incredibly compelling message for the modern world. And I wish more people would hear it. It is Judaism. Come and see things in a new and a different way. What if instead, after all, eating like a chazer, as most of us do, as our Lil Mode speaker Jonathan Crane from Emory spoke about, we could elevate our eating? What if we said blessings and we experienced the act of nourishing our bodies as a sacred, holy experience? What if instead of staring at that cell phone screen, we totaled all of that time, and yes, I've done it, it's really depressing. And we took that time and we drove to a park and we walked around and we appreciated God's role in nature. What if we took an hour out of our Thursday night to drive to shul and join the minyan? What if instead of spending a moment what if we spent that moment being grateful for what we have instead of worrying all the time about what it is that we don't have? In our own everyday climb up the mountain, we see the world one way all the time. Jacob certainly did. But having God in our lives helps us to see the world in a different way than ever before. That's why I want to close with this challenge for everyone this morning. Here's the challenge to this whole theory that I've presented about having God in your life. The Kutzker Rebbe was once asked, where is it that God dwells? Lakotska Rebbe replied, God dwells wherever you let God in. What happens on Mount Moriah to our parsha to Jacob is not a given. The gift of new perspective that comes from God is great, but only if we all strive to use it. The gift of God, the gift of coming to a place, to a destination, the gift of that divine spark within us to see the world a different way, not everyone in the world takes it. I was looking at the traffic for the fun run this morning, right? I was excited. I said, wow, look at all the people coming to junior congregation today. Some people went to the fun run. How many of us wake up in the morning and see something that calls on us to say, let's go find a place where God is. Maybe I won't know that it's there, but I'm going to find God in that place. May all of us in this room and at home seize that opportunity. May we all encounter God, see things this Shabbat and every week in a new and different way. Amen.